After agreeing to the showcase, Jenny didn't feel excitement right away. Instead, she felt something heavier, responsibility. It was strange for her because she had always treated art like something private, something that lived quietly between her and her sketchbook. Now, suddenly, it felt like it had stepped outside of her control and was asking to be seen by the world. On her way back to her apartment in New York City, the city felt different. The streets were still loud, cars still rushed past, and people still moved like they were chasing invisible deadlines. But Jenny noticed small things she had always ignored before. A broken streetlight flickering like a heartbeat. A man sleeping on a bench with a newspaper covering his face. A couple arguing softly under a glowing sign, their shadows stretching long on the pavement. She found herself mentally sketching everything, as if her mind had refused to stop working even when her hands were still. For the first time, she wondered if she had been seeing the world correctly all along, or if she had simply been seeing it more deeply than others. Back in her apartment, she didn't celebrate. She didn't call anyone. Instead, she sat on the floor surrounded by her drawings like they were pieces of her own memory scattered around her. The room was dim, lit only by a small lamp that cast soft yellow light over the chaos of paper and paint. Jenny started sorting her work. Not by date. Not by quality. But by feeling. Some sketches carried sadness, faces with tired eyes, streets in the rain, silhouettes standing alone under empty skies. Others carried warmth, children laughing in parks, sunlight pouring through train windows, small moments of strangers helping each other without words. As she looked through them, something began to form in her mind. She realized her art was not random. It was not just drawing people. It was documenting emotions that people never said out loud. And that realization made her pause. Because if her art was truly about emotions, then showing it meant exposing her own inner world. That thought made her uncomfortable. The next few days passed in a strange rhythm. Jenny continued her small jobs during the day, but her mind was no longer fully present in them. She would pour coffee at a cafe, but her thoughts would drift toward composition, lighting, expressions. She would restock shelves, but her eyes would study how customers moved, how their moods shifted in silence. It felt like the world had become louder in meaning, even if it stayed quiet in sound. At night, she pushed herself to draw more intentionally. Not just random sketches, but pieces meant for the showcase. Every stroke felt heavier now. Every line carried awareness that someone else might one day see it, judge it, misunderstand it, or maybe even connect with it. And that fear, being misunderstood, grew slowly inside her. There were moments she almost stopped. Moments where she stared at a blank page for hours and thought, maybe I should just quit while no one is expecting anything from me. But then she would remember something the man had said, "These feel like memories." That sentence became a kind of anchor inside her mind. One evening, she returned to the small art space in Brooklyn where she had first been invited. She wasn't scheduled to meet anyone, but she wanted to see the place again. The curator noticed her and waved her in casually, as if he already expected her return. The space was quieter this time. Sunlight filtered through tall windows, falling gently on unfinished artworks leaning against walls. The curator asked her how she was feeling about the showcase. Jenny hesitated before answering honestly. "I don't know if my work is strong enough," she said. "It feels too personal." He nodded as if he had heard this many times before. "Good," he replied simply. Jenny frowned slightly. "Good?" He leaned against a table, folding his arms. "Most people try to create art that looks impressive. You create art that feels lived. That's harder to ignore, but also harder to accept." That stayed with her long after she left. Because for the first time, she realized her struggle wasn't technical. It was emotional. She didn't need to become a better artist. She needed to become braver about being seen. As the days moved closer to the showcase, Jenny began noticing something unusual happening inside her. Her fear didn't disappear, but it started to shift. Instead of stopping her, it started sharpening her focus. She became more careful with details, more intentional with themes, more honest with what she chose to include and what she chose to leave out. She stopped trying to make her art perfect. Instead, she tried to make it truthful. And that changed everything. One night, she stood by her apartment window for a long time, looking at the city stretching endlessly in front of her. The skyline of New York City glowed like a living canvas, millions of stories happening at once, none of them waiting to be understood. For the first time, Jenny felt something shift inside her quietly but deeply. She wasn't just someone who drew anymore, she was someone preparing to speak, without words. And her art was going to be her voice. The week of the showcase arrived faster than Jenny expected. It didn't come with celebration or excitement. It came quietly, like a shadow growing longer at the end of the day. Every morning she woke up with the same feeling in her chest, something between fear and anticipation, as if she was standing on the edge of a decision she could no longer undo. In New York City, life continued as always. People rushed through streets, taxis honked without patience, and the subway swallowed and released crowds like it had its own breathing rhythm. But Jenny felt detached from all of it now. The world looked the same, yet she no longer felt like just a passerby in it. She felt like someone about to be seen. At home, her apartment had changed again. The walls were now filled with selected pieces for the showcase. Each drawing was carefully chosen, not because it was perfect, but because it carried something real. A woman crying silently on a train. A street musician playing under rain. A child staring at a cracked wall like it held answers. Jenny would stand in front of them for long moments, not as the creator, but as if she was meeting them again for the first time. And every time she looked, she asked herself the same question: will people understand this, or will they just look and walk away? The day before the showcase, doubt hit her harder than before. She sat on the floor, surrounded by her packed frames and sketches, unable to move for a while. Her mind replayed every possible outcome: people laughing, people ignoring, people calling it not real art. Her hands trembled slightly as she tried to tape one last piece. For the first time, she admitted something to herself quietly: I might fail in front of everyone. The silence in the room didn't respond. It never did. But something inside her did. A softer voice, not loud, not dramatic, just steady. Even if you fail, you will finally be seen. That thought didn't remove her fear. But it stopped it from controlling her. The next evening, she barely slept. And when morning came, she carried her artwork through the streets like it was something fragile and alive. The city felt sharper that day. Every sound louder. Every face more distant. When she reached the small exhibition space, her heart tightened. The room was already being prepared. White walls, soft lighting. Empty frames waiting to be filled with meaning. Other artists were there too, confident, social, laughing casually as they arranged their work. Jenny felt like she didn't belong. She quietly placed her pieces in her assigned space and stepped back. For a moment, she almost walked away. But she stayed. As the exhibition opened, people slowly started arriving. At first, it was small, friends, local visitors, curious strangers. They walked slowly, observing, discussing quietly. Jenny stood near her work, trying to stay invisible. The first few reactions were not what she hoped for. Some people glanced and moved on quickly. Some stopped for a moment, then walked away without expression. And that silence hurt more than criticism. Because silence felt like nothing mattered. Jenny felt her chest tighten. Maybe I was wrong, she thought. Maybe it's not enough. Then something shifted. A woman stopped in front of one of Jenny's sketches, a drawing of a man sitting alone on a bus, staring out of a fogged window. She didn't move for a long time. Then she said quietly to her friend, "This feels like my father." That sentence changed the air around Jenny. Because suddenly, it wasn't about art anymore. It was about recognition. More people began to stop. Longer pauses. Quieter voices. A teenager stood in front of a drawing of a lonely street at night and whispered, "I feel like this every day." A man in a suit stared at another piece for a long time and simply said, "I didn't know someone else saw life like this." Jenny stood frozen. Not because she was proud, but because she was witnessing something she never expected. Her private world was becoming a shared language. Still, not everyone understood it. One visitor shrugged and said, "It's just sketches of sad people." Jenny heard it, and for a second, it hurt deeply. Because that was the risk: when you show your truth, not everyone sees its meaning. But this time, something inside her didn't collapse. It stayed steady. Because she finally understood, not every eye is meant to feel what you create. Later that evening, the curator approached her. He didn't say much at first. He just looked at the crowd, then at her work, then back at her. Finally, he said, "You didn't just display art today." Jenny looked at him, still overwhelmed. "You made people feel seen." That sentence stayed in her chest longer than anything else that day. As the exhibition slowed and people began to leave, Jenny walked through the space quietly. The same drawings she once created alone were now standing in front of strangers who had felt something because of them. She realized something important in that moment: her art was never meant to be hidden. It was meant to connect. Outside, the night air of New York City felt different again. Not because the city had changed, but because she had. She wasn't just a girl who drew anymore. She was someone whose silence had finally taken shape. And for the first time, she didn't feel invisible in the world. She felt present in it. The morning after the showcase, Jenny woke up earlier than usual. But for the first time in a long while, it wasn't anxiety that pulled her out of sleep. It was silence, deep, calm silence inside her mind. In New York City, the world outside was already awake. The city stretched and moved like it never paused for reflection. Yet Jenny felt different walking through it now, as if something invisible had shifted between her and everything she looked at. She was still the same person. But she was no longer unseen. At first, she didn't receive any big recognition. There were no sudden fame headlines, no instant transformation of her life. Instead, something quieter happened. People started remembering her work. A small art blog mentioned the exhibition. Someone posted one of her sketches online with a caption that simply said, "This feels like real life." Then another person shared it. And another. Jenny didn't even notice at first. She was still working her small jobs, still sketching in quiet corners, still living her simple routine. But slowly, something began to grow around her work, something she didn't fully understand yet. Attention. Not loud attention, but meaningful attention. One afternoon, the curator from the exhibition called her. His voice was calm but different this time, like he was holding back excitement. "Jenny," he said, "we've had a few galleries asking about your work." She didn't respond immediately. Not because she didn't hear him, but because she didn't believe it at first. "Galleries?" she repeated softly. "Yes," he replied. "Real ones. Not just local spaces. They saw your pieces online. They want to meet you." Jenny sat down without realizing it. Her sketchbook was still open beside her, half-finished drawing on the page. She looked at it as if it belonged to someone else. For years, she had created art in silence. Now the silence was answering back. But success did not feel like celebration. It felt like pressure. That night, Jenny couldn't sleep again, but this time it wasn't fear of failure. It was fear of change. Because she understood something important: if she stepped forward now, her life would never go back to what it was. And a part of her was still attached to that quiet, invisible version of herself, the version who could create without being watched. The next meeting was held in a small gallery space in New York City. The room was modern, clean, and bright. The kind of place where art didn't just hang, it was evaluated. Jenny arrived early. Her hands were steady, but her thoughts were not. When the gallery representatives arrived, they didn't rush. They walked slowly through her work, observing carefully. They asked questions, not about technique, but about meaning. What made you draw this piece? Who are these people to you? Is this based on real experiences? Jenny answered honestly. I don't draw stories, she said quietly. I draw what I notice when people think no one is looking. There was a long pause after that. Then one of them nodded slowly. That's exactly why this works. They offered her something she never expected, a solo exhibition. A full space. Her own collection. Not shared. Not small. Her name as the center of the entire experience. Jenny stepped outside the gallery afterward and stood still for a long time. The streets of New York moved around her as always, but she didn't move with them. Her mind wasn't racing forward. It was looking backward. At every moment that led her here. The late nights drawing alone. The doubt. The rejection. The silence. Everything that once felt meaningless now looked like preparation. But the final test wasn't success. It was choice. Because accepting meant pressure, expectations, deadlines, and visibility she had never lived with before. Refusing meant safety, but also staying small. Jenny walked through the city slowly that evening, letting the weight of that decision settle inside her. She passed strangers laughing, people arguing, lights reflecting on wet streets. Life continued without waiting for her answer. And that made her realize something important. The world would never pause for her fear, only she could decide when to move. That night, she returned to her apartment and stood in front of her sketches one last time before deciding. Every piece felt like a version of herself she had outgrown, but also a version she could never abandon. She sat down and closed her eyes. And for the first time, she didn't ask, "Am I ready?" Instead, she asked, "Am I willing?" And the answer came quietly but clearly. Yes. The next morning, she called the gallery back. "I'll do it," she said. No hesitation. No shaking voice. Just certainty. Months later, her solo exhibition opened. People filled the space, not just to see art, but to feel it. Her name was now connected to something bigger than herself, but she didn't lose who she was inside it. Because she never stopped drawing the same way she always had, honestly. Quietly. Observantly. One evening during the exhibition, Jenny stood alone in the center of the gallery after closing hours. The lights were dim, and the walls were covered with her work, pieces that once lived only in her small apartment now surrounding her like echoes of her journey. She looked around and finally understood something fully. She didn't turn passion into purpose by chasing success. She turned it into purpose by refusing to stop when it was invisible. Outside, New York City continued its endless rhythm. But Jenny no longer felt like she was trying to keep up with it. She felt like she was part of it. Not as someone lost in the crowd, but as someone who had finally given her silence a voice. And sometimes, that is how purpose is born. Not in applause, but in the quiet decision to keep creating when no one is watching.